Hi, I'm Professor Rosen. So rather than burning the first lecture or the first half of the lecture on just going over the syllabus and reading it over it and boring everybody, I figure it's a better idea to just bore everybody with the actual content of the course rather than the syllabus that you can easily go over yourself. However, I do like being able to explain my syllabus, so I'm throwing this up on a video for you to go over yourself. So I'm going to go over it for you here. So hopefully this will answer any questions you have about the syllabus. All right, so this is for 2168 data structures in spring 2018. This is me. This is my email. I am generally pretty good about answering email. So course details. So data structures is basically the next step in computer science. So topics that I'll go over are generics, inheritance. Be going over it again just to make sure we got it right, and polymorphism. And that was covered in 1068, but we're going to go over it again. Array lists, time complexity, linked lists, stacks, queues, recursion, which will feature mazes and chess, trees, keeps, Huffman trees, sorting algorithms, hash tables, graphs, and maybe a bit more extra stuff if we get the time for it. It's a lot of the course is actually quite fun. The first bit of it is a first couple of weeks, first 4 weeks, bit, very technical, very abstract, but it pays off around once we get into recursion and stacks and queues, because we start being able to talk about games and solving some problems that you will be very surprised that you're going to be able to solve. So time and place of the course. Sections 1 and 2, they meet Monday and Wednesday from 12:30 to 1:50 in Tuttleman 302. The evening section meets Tuesday from 5:30 to 8 o'clock. That's p.m. in the evening, hence evening section, on Tuesday. So 5:30 from 8 to 8 o'clock on Tuesday in that same room. It is a bit of a hassle to do all of one lecture. Well, not for me. I can talk for hours on end. Love the sound of my own voice, especially when I have a captive audience of you students. But for you, it's easy to get bored, easy to get distracted, So I will do my best to try to give you guys a break during that time and to keep it entertaining for you. So your labs the lab sections are, Lab 1 is Friday at 12 p.m. in Circ 357. Lab 2 is Thursday at 9 a.m. in Circ 204. And Lab 7, the evening section, has theirs at 5:30 p.m. in Circ 357 as well. So I will try to be at the labs for about an hour. Especially since this lab overlaps with 2 other of my labs. I do try to be at the labs so the students get the chance to ask me questions, and that I can get some one-on-one time with you guys that I normally would not be able to get in such a... It's not like an enormous lecture setting, but 40 to 60 students is a lot. Okay, so your prerequisites, a C or better in CIS 1166 and 1068. So we assume you know how to use Java and that you have started to learn how to think abstractly. But as a word of warning, if you are not, if you've got a C in 1068, you may not be fully ready for 2168, because we've seen people who come in and they get a lower letter grade in 2168. So bear that in mind. And I try to make the first basically 5 or 6 weeks, once those are done, you should have a good idea of how you're going to fare in your class. I try to make it so basically the assignment difficulty peaks around week 5. That seems weird since you think the most difficult assignments come at the end. But those assignments are just maybe a bit more complex or deal with more complex material. The difficulty is different. Difficulty meaning the amount of effort you have to put into that. And that will be the Josephus problem, I generally find to be the big hurdle. If you can get past that, and if you can do linked lists, then you're golden in this class. Okay, so of the textbook. So let me just switch the camera view for a second and pull out that textbook. I have it somewhere. Oh, here it is. Is this one, Abstraction and Design Using Java, 2nd edition by Elliot Kaufman and Paul Wolfgang. So this is the 2nd edition that we've ordered. So I particularly like this book because of the order that it presents the material. It's a very consistent order, very intuitive order. It builds things up in the proper order. So, and unlike most of your other textbooks, we will actually cover pretty much everything in the textbook with the exception of Chapter 9, and I'll try to cover a bit of that, but if we have to drop some of it, it's only because there just isn't enough time. Okay? It's a good textbook. You should get it. The fun thing about this class, though, is that a lot of additional resources can be found online. A lot of these things are not just... A lot of these things are universal to programming. They're not just specific to Java. So linked lists, those are taught. I learned how to do them in C. I learned how to do them in Python. I learned how to do them in Java. They don't or rather, when I was a student, I had to code those all up in those languages. But once you learn how to do it in one language, it carries over to another language. So there's a lot of good resources out on the web to supplement. All right, office hours. So my office hours, are Monday, Wednesday, from 3 to 4 p.m. You do not need any appointment or advance notice. You don't need to send me an email saying, can we meet then? You just come and walk in. Okay, my office is Circ 349. If for some reason you cannot meet me during my office hours or need to meet me for some help, you can send me an email. So generally I can meet later than 4 o'clock so long as I've been given an email. I can meet on some other days. If for some reason it just doesn't work out for either of us to be on campus at the same time, I can meet via WebEx or Skype, which allows me to go over your code remotely and possibly make changes to it and help you with it. So that's something that I find to be particularly useful. Okay, we have 2 TAs this time around. So they are present during your lab to assist you. We'll have one. So each section will have a TA there who's dedicated for that lab section. But you can go and see the other TA if you want to for office hours, if those office hours fit you better. You can also email them to make appointments at times other than the times they have listed. So our TAs are Yangchen and Shengzhang. These and their offices are listed here. All right. Attendance is expected. I mean, you're paying for this course. You might as well show up, and attendance does correlate with good performance. So, show up. If you do arrive late, just don't be a jerk about it. Just do it as quietly as possible. It's fine. I'm not going to scold you or anything. And it's a good idea to come to the lectures. If the only caveat is don't come if you're sick, which I'll get into. But I happen to mention stuff that will and won't be on the test up to exact questions. So the caveat there is illness. If you're sick, don't come to class. Okay? I have a kid at home, very young, and I don't want him to get what you have. I don't want to get what you have either. I don't want my wife to have what you have. I don't want your classmates to have what you have. Rather, you should probably stay home, drink plenty of fluids, and get plenty of rest. And you should watch the lecture online. You're watching this online. I'm going to be recording my lectures. This, I have found, is a great tool for students. So you'll have the opportunity to, make up what you missed there. If you're worried about missing a quiz, then talk to me, and we'll see what we can work out. Academic honesty, you should be familiar with this right now. Basically, don't cheat. Don't copy somebody else's work verbatim and claim that it's your own work. We will allow you to, you're allowed to work with a friend. You're allowed to work with your classmates. In fact, I encourage you to work with your classmates. You just can't copy their code, right? I want you guys to work together. Please work together a lot, but don't copy each other's code, and don't just say, hey, can I borrow your code as a guide to writing my own? And then you borrow their code and turn it in. without making a change. And then or even worse, you do change some small little thing, but it makes it get errors and unable to run. So we're quite good at detecting plagiarism. So don't copy your code. Okay. Disabilities, if you need accommodations, please speak to me and contact DRS. We're very good at making accommodations for our students. And lastly, these recordings. I will be doing my best to record these lectures with my laptop. You can make your own recordings, but please tell me. And because you're in 2168, actually you have an advantage where you'll have 2 separate recordings. One for the evening lectures and one for the daytime lectures. So you have 2 sets of recordings on the same material, and sometimes I switch it up a bit based on how it went the first time around I taught it. So it will be to your advantage there. That said, I'm working with new recording software this semester. Rather than using Panopto, I'm basically rolling my own, so using OBS. So there might be some technical difficulties. All right, letter grades. So grading, this is the part where you probably care about the most. So first off, I don't curve the class to make a bell curve and say, okay, only this students get A's and only this number of students get B's. If half the class gets over a 90, then I guess I'm giving out half of my class an A grade. But essentially, if you get above a 90, a 90 or above, you're guaranteed an A. If you get above an 80, you're guaranteed a B, and so on and so forth. In general, though, you need about above a 70 to pass the class. There will be extra credit opportunities on exams and assignments. I generally do not give out extra assignments or tests for you to make up, but I do usually drop a lab or 2. Same with the quiz. And I do use plus-minus grading. Okay? And I'll go into the breakdown of your grades and what's all involved in those. So your final grade is the average of basically each category, and that you can see, and you should be able to see your current grade on Canvas anytime you look at it. So your quizzes initially have a 5% value, but I can increase that, but I'll make the quizzes harder to compensate. And I'll get into my caveats for adjustment. So lastly, what about curving? So generally what happens is that I find basically I don't curve any individual assignment, but I do adjust the ranges. So it might be that an 88 ends up or above ends up being an A, and a 78 or 77 and above ends up being a B. So I end up doing that. Okay. So but that depends from semester to semester. Okay. So here's the breakdown. Quizzes are worth 5%. I'll go into what a quiz is. Labs and assignments are worth 30%. Time labs are worth 15%. So that's half the grade right there. And these are stuff that will happen in the labs or as part of the labs or in lectures. Okay. And my caveat is that basically I reserve the right to increase this quiz grade. And if I do so, I'll probably take away from some over here or over here, because the timed labs, which I'll go into, are a new thing this semester, and I like to give myself some wiggle room if it turns out to be a disaster. Okay, so quizzes will be given in class. Okay, they're short little things. I've already got 6 of them written, and they're electronic, so you can just log in. So you can log in, and they'll automatically be graded. And they're meant to be a very low stress kind of grade. Because they double as attendance grade. So you'll get 6 or 7 points out of 10 just for showing up. So that's gonna help a lot. And then the rest of the points is for getting stuff right and paying attention in class, right? So I find that's a pretty fair way to get those. And there might be some paper quizzes for some questions that are a bit harder to auto grade, and same deal will apply there. You'll get credit just basically for writing your name down. Okay. So labs and assignments and labs, great consistency there. All right, assignments and labs are intrinsically tied because they're the same thing. Your assignments are posted online on Canvas, and you will receive them basically won't be late Thursday evening. That will be because we have a Thursday lab, but they'll be up approximately every Wednesday, so I'll have to fix that before I upload this. And it'll be due at 6 a.m. on Friday or Saturday the following week, so you'll see the time. Why 6 a.m.? 6 a.m. it will technically be due at midnight, but I always, have found that basically I've never been unwilling to give hey, can I have an hour extra to turn in my lab? I've always been willing to give that request, or grant that request. So this 6 a.m. counts as like a automatic 6-hour extension on your labs. Okay, so and if you decide that losing sleep is a bit more valuable than losing a couple points, then sure, because we do have a very lenient late policy. Although in my experience, it's better to take the late grade and get some more sleep. Lab sessions are, so what is a lab then? The lab section itself is dedicated for time for you to come in and work on your assignment and be able to ask me and ask your TAs for help on it. Okay? Your priority should be working on the lab that was just assigned, not the previous week's lab, right? I find too many students, they fall behind in my class and end up getting a homework grade of maybe in the 70s or 80s as a result because they have late assignments and they've been playing catch up the entire semester. That's not a way to win, and that's a way to actually end up getting a lower grade, a lower overall grade in class. That can bump you down to a B if you were in a low A, or even worse, from a B to a C. So we do expect you to show up because that might also be an area where we give you a quiz. Okay. Compilation. Your programming assignments are expected to compile. You should know what that means by now. It's a 0 if you can't get them to compile, and you got to turn them in as a Java file unless we tell you otherwise. So how do you get grades for these? It's a 2-part process. So to get a grade, it must be submitted online to Blackboard. That's not right at all. So let's go ahead and fix that. The destruct. Nothing like patching your syllabus for a second time on the fly. All right, so now, how do you actually get a grade on your assignment? So this is the turning in portion of it. To get a grade on your assignment, on your lab, you need to submit it online to Canvas. This is so we can have an electronic paper trail for your assignment. That way, if for some reason we forget to mark it somehow, then you can point at us and say, hey, I should have gotten a grade for this. But turning it in is only the first step. To actually get a grade for it, you have to demo it to me or the TA. So that means coming to the TA or me during office hours or during the lab and showing that your program works. And that will involve probably answering some questions for us to show that you understand how it works, explaining pieces of your source code, answering some of the questions. Okay, now to go over the late policy. So our late policy is that your grade is equal to score times 0.95 raised to the Lth power, where L is the number of days late. What this simply means is that it's essentially 5% off per day that's late. So rather than just taking off 5 points, it's 5 percentage points. Sorry, rather than taking off 5 percentage points, it's just 5% each day. So it's an exponential decay. So first day late, 95. Second day late, a bit more than 90. It's your responsibility to demo the late work. If you do not demo it to us by the end of the course, you get a 0 in those assignments you don't demo. So you need to come and make sure you demo it, preferably before the finals start, because once the finals start, my schedule will become highly irregular. You do not want to try to be tracking me down, because I'll be getting ready for an international trip to Japan near the end of the semester. So late grades are going to be determined by when you turn it in, not when you demo it. So you can turn it in and then demo it a week later, but it's in your interest to demo it as soon as possible, because if you make a mistake, then you can correct it sooner. It won't be nearly as late. So example, if it's, say Alice turns in a assignment that gets full credit, but it's 5 days late, she would get 77.38 on that assignment. All right, so now on to your exams. Your formal exams account for half your grade. Practice exams will be provided, so I give you a practice exam for the first and second exam, and then for the final exams, rather than making one for you guys, what I have a tendency to do is go out and grab exams from other data structure courses and go over them. So from other schools. So the practice exams, though, that I write, they're excellent. If you can do well on the practice exam, you're going to do well on the actual exam. Do not miss any exam. I will give you makeup exams on a case-by-case basis. So you should be able to expect 2 exams, which are, again, 15% each. So regular exams are 30% of the grade, right? And then your final exam will be 20% of your grade overall. Okay? So these exams will take place most likely in your lab section, so you can take advantage of the additional time. And it occurs around week 5 or week 6, depending on how everything runs together. And the second will be during week 10 or 11, depending on how everything shakes out. So this is subject to change, however, but not by too much. Your final exam, sections 1 and 2, they take a common final in a big room with everybody else. Typically, this is in Gladfelter Hall, which is very close to Cirque. So this will be on May 8th at 3:30 to 5:30, and I'm double booked for common finals, so I'll be proctoring 2 exams at once, essentially. So probably not be proctoring your exam, but all the other 2168 TAs will be there. Where is it? No idea. We'll announce it once we get the chance to reserve those rooms. Okay. Section 7, the evening section, they will take a different exam on the same day, May 8th at 5:45. This will be in the normal classroom unless otherwise noted. Okay, so you'll be taking the final exam in the evening because you've got an evening class. It will most likely be very different, but it will cover the same material. The final exam has a reputation for being difficult. The main reason for this is that it is a huge amount of material to cover. There's basically everything in the semester. And because studying for finals is very stressful. So you've got a lot of things going on. If you have more than 2 finals on the same day, please be aware that you are allowed to tell one of your professors, haha, no, I'm going to take it on a different day. And you got to find a professor who's amenable to it, but you cannot take. University policy says you can't take more than 2 finals on the same day. Okay, you'll have to take it during a makeup period or something. Okay, that doesn't happen too often due to scheduling, but sometimes it can happen. All right, timed labs. These are labs, but they are. I will announce them that week, and they're given in that lab that week, and they have to be completed in that lab. Within the time limit. So basically an hour and a half. So it's an actual lab that's timed. You have only a certain amount of time to complete it, which is that lab section. Treat it like a mini exam, except you get to do it on a computer rather than on paper. There will be approximately 3 this semester, and their current weight is at 15%, which means each of those is about 5%. Now this might sound stressful, but as a result, it's allowed me to really reduce the weight of my exams by pulling out Now my exams are only worth 15% as opposed to closer to 65 or 70 where they were previously. So these are going to be in settings, and I'm still deciding what resources you're going to be allowed, and how those things are going to work. But treat them as mini exams. You're going to have 3 this semester, and one will be probably around week 3. Then probably one will be between, maybe at week 7. So between so one will be between your first and second exam, and then one before the final. Okay. So disclaimer: this syllabus is a guide. It can be changed. In fact, I changed it in the middle of this video. I will have to re-upload it, unfortunately. But I will update it, and to reflect any changes. So this is a guide. Basically, if something changes, I'll announce it in class and update the syllabus so that you'll have current information on that. Here's your rights and responsibilities, and here's a bunch of tips for succeeding, which is don't be afraid to ask questions in class. Seriously, this is a big one. If you're lost, then I guarantee you that basically that there's probably 20 other students who are lost as well. So please ask a question if you're lost. Students won't. I know there's a lot of peer pressure about that, but nobody's going to think you're stupid for asking a question. Okay. This goes doubly so for math. If you don't understand or remember a concept when we bring it up, please let us know, especially since even I know a lot of you will be taking Calc 2 this semester. And I will be drawing from stuff in Calc 2 that you may not have learned, and that's okay, because I won't assume that you already know it. I'll just simply declare that this equation converges to this, and therefore this is the way you work without proving it. I leave the proofs to Calc 2. Get into the habit of studying a couple days early, do your homework. So all good advice I have down here for doing well in my class. Okay? So anything else I forgot to mention? Oh yes, note policies, right, for exams. So the first exam will be closed note. I will provide some information and hints with it. And then for the other exams, it'll be determined. Typically, the final exam is open book and open note. But for the second exam, probably it will be a single page of paper. All right. So that's it for this. Now I will go ahead and see you guys in class.